Simon, I'm going to come to you first. The Dallas Cowboys, something to be positive for 2022.
For me, the positivity is that Sean Payton is no longer a New Orleans Saint, and therefore will soon be jettisoned into Frisco to hopefully breathe some life into a really average skill position group, actually. So to me, that's the positivity, the kind of culmination of the Mike McCarthy era and the long overdue rebirth or birth of the Sean Payton in Dallas era.
So what you're saying, Simon, is the positivity is that they've only got one more year of mediocrity in Mike McCarthy. That's it. So there's no real positivity this season. It's just waiting for next season.
Well, except depends how it starts, Olly. If they go 0-4, you just never know. Sean Payton sat there on the Fox set. He could be helicoptered in to Arlington, and away we go.
I quite like that. I haven't heard anyone else come up with Sean Payton might just come in and rescue the season in any case. That's amazing. I love that.
Human rescue package.
Do you think there's a chance he comes out during the season then? I know,
for the right job, I suspect he would. And I think Dallas is absolutely the right job. I think that the two are pretty much a marriage made in heaven. And you're looking at a quarterback like Dak Prescott, who has still got plenty of years left, working with a guy like Sean Payton, everything that he did for Drew Brees. I think it would be a pretty showbiz fit, and I think that's Jerry Jones, Dak Prescott, Sean Payton as a triumvirate. What could go wrong?
Is there any worry though that Dak Prescott's drop off after his injury last year kind of continues into this season, along with, as you said, I know we're trying to be positive here, but a slightly lacking skill position offense?
I think that's part of it. You do worry about the skill positions. Obviously, losing Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup injured with a foot injury. Is this the last year of Ezekiel Elliott? But I think there are young guys on the roster. The offensive line is not what it was. The running game is not what it was. But guys like Tony Pollard, Dalton Schultz, guys like that, I think will be integral and important moving forwards for Prescott. I think you are looking at a quarterback like Dak who almost has to raise the level of the players around him as much as anything else. He's got that ability to do that. So yeah, I think Payton in Dallas makes absolutely perfect sense, and I think that will be the future.
It's astonishing that we're talking about a team that were 12-5, probably should have won in the first round of the playoffs and gone at least to the divisional round last year with some exciting young players on defense, and yet now they look like they are opening up a hole for a team to come from beneath and overtake them. And that's why I will take up my first point of positivity for the Philadelphia Eagles, who are going to win the NFC East this year. That's what you have to be positive about this year. Wow. I'm absolutely convinced of it.
I agree. When you look at, they've got to come up against the Giants and the Commanders, who, isn't it weird, by the way, calling them the Commanders? For so many years, I've just called them Washington or Washington Football Club and not the other name. And now we've got actually something to call them, the Commanders. But you've got those two teams which are rubbish. The Cowboys, who aren't very good. But the Eagles, when they've brought in A.J. Brown, who could be brilliant for them and for everybody else on that roster, Devontae Smith there and Jalen Hurts as well, a decent running back, and that defense is absolutely loaded. I don't care what you say, Simon, they are loaded, and I love the look of the Eagles. Plus, #KitWatch, they've got new black uniforms and a black helmet as well. Love it.
Yeah, See, my point of positivity was similar, actually, and I've done this alphabetically.
Well, the uniforms,
division by division. No, more that similar to Dallas in that the point of positivity is C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, Tyler Van Dyke, Will Levis. In terms of, I like Jalen Hurts as a leader, but I think he's a backup quarterback, and I don't see the consistency that would convince me to invest heavily at the end of this season when his contract runs out. I think that the positivity for Philadelphia is that there are lots of interesting, good, solid pieces in place. And you mentioned some of them on offense in terms of Brown and Devonta Smith, and can they get a tune out of Jalen Reagor and Miles Sanders and Dallas Goedert? And defensively, there's a lot of really good players, and they added to them with guys like Nakobe Dean. You've got a premier cover corner, one of the most underrated players in the league in Darius Slay, but I just don't think they have the quarterback that can take them to the promised land. And so for me, the positivity is, what looks like at the moment, an incredibly stacked draft class for 2023 in terms of quarterbacks.
Yeah, what you do have, and this is being kind of part of the big point is that you have done everything to make sure you know whether that's true or not about Jalen Hurts. There's an offensive line there. There's a running game that, in theory, both from a talent perspective and from... I mean, he led the league in rushing yards last year for a quarterback. He's definitely got that dual threat. I think they will... The problem is that within their division, I think that they'll end up winning 4 or 5 out of 6 games, which is going to be enough to win their division when they win another 4 or 5 out of it, probably. That's why I say I think they're going to win the division this year. They are set up to see whether or not Jalen Hurts is the future, but they have also given themselves draft picks going forward to make sure that if they need to move up, if they need to find their guy next year, if it is going to be 3-4 quarterbacks available in that draft, they can go and get their guy if they need to.
Yeah.
And the thing on their side, division-wise, is that they're going up against the NFC North and the AFC South. So there are 4 teams in both of those divisions that are vying for the number 1 picks in the Jags, Texans, Bears, and Lions. So that's another 4 wins. So there's wins to be had all over the place for this team, and then pick up some wins elsewhere against maybe the Cowboys or the Packers or whoever, the Saints. The Eagles are looking good this year.
Yeah, I think they're in great shape in a lot of positions. You look at the tackles with, another hugely underrated player, Jordan Mailata, who's one of the best left tackles in the NFL. Got Lane Johnson, obviously. They drafted Landon Dickerson last year, who's a really good guard. Cam Jurgens, is he going to play centre? Where's Kelsey going to play? Is Kelsey going to stay at centre? You look at the game last night that Philly had Cam Jurgens on his very first snap, comes out, pulls, absolutely pancakes a Cleveland defender. The bench goes wild. Running back, with Kenneth Gainwell and Kennedy Brooks, the kid from Oklahoma, and receiver we've talked about. Defensively, Hassan Reddick is there, and you're Fletcher Cox and Jordan Davis and Brandon Graham and Javon Hargrave and Milton Williams. So that they're stacked. I just don't think the quarterback is good enough to take them where they want to go.
All right, this is the reason we did this division first, because there is some negativity here, and maybe by the sound of it, based on what Olly's saying, is that the NFC North is where we next need to focus on, so we really get these ones out of the way. But 2 teams here, I feel like there is more reasons to potentially be positive. The Giants, maybe it's a make or break year. Can we see them? Daboll feels like after they've gone one and done already, it's a guy who's going to get a couple of years to rebuild here. Another team who need to find out what they've got at quarterback, whether or not he is the long-term option or not. But some really exciting young talent coming in, particularly through the draft. There's, for the New York Giants, for a team who are in rebuilding mode, it feels like they've had an off-season where they've made the right moves, at least, Simon.
Yeah, I think for me, the point of positivity is, look, what can Brian Daboll do with Daniel Jones? Because this is now a scheme fit that suits his style of play. He's finally going to get great protection. Andrew Thomas, obviously, now developing him into one of the best left tackles in the league. Evan Neal, obviously, on the other side. So what can he do? He does have talent. Did he ever have the full trust of the coaching staff? Did he ever have, that constant rotation of offensive coordinators? Aaron Rodgers would struggle with Jason Garrett as his offensive coordinator. And I think, and I'm not saying his upward trend is going to be anything close to Josh Allen's, but you look at his first 38 games and compare them with Josh Allen's. Josh was a 60% completion percentage quarterback. He averaged 249 total yards per game, 51 touchdowns, 29 picks. Daniel Jones is 3% better in terms of his completion percentage at 63%. He's averaging 247 total yards per game, so 2 less, 45 scores, so 6 less, 29 picks the same. Now Josh Allen is, one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the league, and I'm not saying that's where Daniel Jones can go, but with a competent play caller, with a guy that trusts him. You heard Daboll yesterday say, I love Daniel. I love the kid. He really works hard. What can he do? I think it's a really interesting, and it's kind of a do or die situation for Jones. It's kind of shit or bust, as it were. We talked about the quarterbacks coming out in the draft next year. What can he do in this offense? Because I don't think there's an offense that's built anywhere else in the league that better suits what Daniel Jones does in terms of his skill set.
And with Daboll turning around Josh Allen pretty much in one season, and him coming out and being an incredible player and doing what he did the last 2, you could potentially see that happening with Daniel Jones as well. They've got a really good receiving core, which really failed last year, but that could be down to, as Simon said, the whole Jason Garrett experience. So the thing I'm really positive about on a Giants point of view is what I've seen from Saquon Barkley. He's a year over that horrible knee injury, And some of the clips, I know it's preseason, but some of the clips I've seen of him running over people and juking and doing this and that, I think it's good for Daniel Jones to have a guy who is a really, really good running back and sort of fresh because he hasn't had much football the last 2 years. So I'm positive for Saquon Barkley coming back and having a good season for the Giants.
The big positive for the Washington Commanders is that Carson Wentz's deal is only a year long and they can cut him with no dead cap.
Right, onto the NFC North.
Anyone want to give me anything more positive for Washington to get excited about?
For me, I think is a youth movement on offense. You know, you've had Sam Howell taking first team snaps. I think Sam Howell's a competent, at worst, starter in this league, and I think that will play out. You got Brian Robinson winning the starting running back job over Antonio Gibson, 4th round pick. Obviously, Terry McLaurin signed his contract. You had Jahan Dotson going the 1st round. You got Diami Brown, the deep speedster from North Carolina. Cole Turner might have been the best player in training camp, but the rookie tight end out of Nevada until he strained his hamstring last week. To me, this youth movement, the skill positions, it is something that's going to move them forwards. Like you say, year of Carson Wentz, but you know you've got the big 226-pounder out of Alabama running the ball. You've got your 3-4 deep at receiver. You've got Logan Thomas coming back at tight end. I know he's not part of that youth movement, but you know Logan Thomas, Cole Turner, Sam Howell can move the pocket with his feet. He's a great runner. He scored a great touchdown running the ball in one of the preseason games. Like I said, he started taking first team snaps. I think Carson Wentz has improved through training camp. But to me, I think there's reasons to be cheerful in terms of that. You know, these young players, I don't think Ron Rivera necessarily will be the guy that ends up taking them forwards because I don't necessarily see their record as being something that Daniel Snyder believes is good enough for the 2023 season. But I think there are youngsters in place where the future looks a little bit brighter in the capital.
You ruined my gag answer by giving a very sensible, genuine reason to be positive. I think I should thank you for making the quality of the podcast higher, even if I will need to pick up my remains from underneath this bus.